Welcome back to another episode of the Genetic Future Podcast. I'm your host, Luis Duque, and I'm excited to be back here recording an episode. I think it's been about 2 months since I recorded a podcast episode, and obviously, I took the month of December off to be with family. We welcome our newest member of the family, and it was just a great opportunity to really reflect on what 2021 was, really plan, concentrate on the goals, the mission of what I want to be doing in 2022. And I think it was just great to just have some rest time, spend time with family, and just disconnect from everything that's going on. This episode, I just want to be talking about a little bit of that process of finishing a year, starting a new one, as well as some of the mindset shifts that I had during this past month. And basically, I want to be doing a lot more of these during 2022. So without further ado, let's just talk about the things that I did to finish 2021 strong, start 2022, and some of the mindset shifts, as well as review process that I'm incorporating in 2022 to make the most out of this year. I will say 2021 was mostly around passing the PE exam. I think that was a big one at the beginning of the year, obviously 6 months. And the second one was being more consistent and putting more content out there, both for the podcast, for the website, social media, and everything that I was doing with Engineering Our Future. And I think with that, there was obviously a lot of metrics, a lot of numbers that were involved in terms of number of listeners I wanted, number of subscribers I wanted on social media. Behind the scenes, I was focusing more on who I wanted to become to achieve those goals, who I wanted to become to reach more people, who I wanted to become to maybe exercise more. And that's exactly what I want to be talking about today, because I heard about this concept a few years ago, but I was reminded of last month, I believe in December, on a podcast episode from the One Thing podcast. I'll try to link it on the show notes below so you can listen back to it. But it was all about the growth mindset and looking at how much you grew compared to the previous year, rather than did I achieve every single metric that I said I was going to achieve. And this was reinforced in a recent episode of the podcast that will be coming up in a few weeks with Jeff Perry about the mindset of looking at the growth and also looking at what the reviews do to help you achieve those goals, and the mindset of growing rather than looking at every single metric. Did I read 30 books this year? Did I grow my Instagram account by 30%? Rather than looking at those metrics, you look at how much you grew within that year, how much you learn. And on top of that, I would say you want to become someone that posts every single week, someone that sits and records a podcast every single week, and that puts the content frequently, rather than someone that is going to achieve 2,000 downloads per episode or something like that. And this mindset, I think, was first incorporated into my life when I read the book Atomic Habits 2 years ago now. And it's all about looking at the systems rather than the goals. And I think the word systems instead of goals, I think, is something that is, in my opinion, makes more sense when we're trying to achieve something. You need a system. Obviously, as engineers, we like to see the numbers, we like to see how everything works. So putting those systems in place, putting the effort to really think about everything before you start going after big goals, looking how you can create systems around it. For example, in the last year and a half, for me, this podcast, you usually don't see it here in camera, but I just flick a couple switches, turn on the camera, and I'm ready to record a podcast. And I wanted that because the friction of setting up the camera, moving everything around, making sure the background looked nice, making sure the light was perfect, it took a whole 15, 20 minutes to set up every time I wanted to record something. So instead, I make sure I put everything on arms on the desk over here. The camera set up 100% of the time. I just need to switch it on. The lights are always there when I want it. I even have a backup mic up here. The mic, I just swing it out of the way when I'm done. So by creating that system, that having everything kind of arm's length from recording the podcast, made everything a lot easier. I don't feel overwhelmed by the process. I don't feel um, lazy by getting everything set up, even though a lot of times I do feel tired or I don't want to record it, but that's a different problem. But having all of these can help a lot. So having this system to record the podcast, to then record it directly on the computer, so I can move it to the Google Drive folder that then gets sent out to editing, sent out to show notes, and then it gets published. Made our life easier. I don't have to get the SD card from the camera, get the SD card from the recorder, sync the audio, and then do all the editing and everything. Everything is already in one place, and a few clicks and a few actions get takes care of everything. So creating this system, I think, is even more important than working towards big goal. One of the things that I really wanted to be working on this year is really reflecting a lot more than I did in 2021. With the P exam at the beginning of the year, a lot of traveling kind of in the middle, summer part of the year, and then getting ready for the baby in November. I didn't really have a lot of time where I was kind of sitting and reflecting on, okay, how was this week? How was this month? What are the things that I learned this week? What are the things that I want to implement in a future week, month? These are the challenges that I face that are going to help me perform better in the following week. What are those things that are really happened that is going to help me grow in my career? So 2022, and I really want to focus a lot more on reviewing, keeping track of everything that I'm doing. I have a few systems in place already, and I'm excited because I'm going to be sharing a lot more of this in the newsletter. So make sure you check it out at luisfelipeduque.com/newsletter. I'm going to be creating a few kind of email courses to walk you through kind of the systems I put in place as an engineer, that if a client comes 6 months, a year from now and asks me, I need this piece of information. I know we kind of talked about it on a meeting a few months ago or even a year ago. I can simply go on my system, search for it, find the piece of information, and really have it available at a moment's notice. So that's something that I really want to put a lot of effort into for 2022, and I want to be sure to create a some sort of like newsletter course or something outlining kind of what I'm doing, and hopefully you guys get a lot of value from it. I'm also working on a few services. So if you're interested, please let me know. Shoot me an email at hi@luisfelipeduque.com, or just go to the website, fill out the form. I'm going to be, I'm working towards what's most beneficial for you, but something in the line of PE prep, PE study help, more in the guidance, not actually the content. Uh, Resume review. I think mock interviews are going to be something that a lot of people will be interested. General coaching, career advice, something like that. I think a lot of people have already asked in the past, but just due to time and just focusing too much on the podcast, I haven't had the time. But now that kind of the podcast is already set up, I think I have a good workflow. I'm looking to expand the amount of things that I'm doing. Obviously, this takes some time, takes some effort, so be on the lookout for that. But I would say within the next month or so, that's going to be live. If you want to be one of the first to kind of get in the beta process, I do have a form that I'm going to be linking in the show notes below to fill out, and then let's chat and see how I can help you, and as well as you help me kind of get this system in place. So again, I think the review process are going to be very important for me in 2022, and I wanted to pair that with some ambitious goals. I'm not going to kind of be saying numbers out here because again, I want to be focusing on the system, on the things that the person I want to become to get there. So I want to be growing more of the podcast, the Engineering Future community, be posting a lot more blog articles, bigger and more entertaining podcast episodes. I think there's a lot of topics that I haven't explored. I'm gonna be gonna create those services that I've been talking about, and really diving into just a more one-on-one conversation with a lot of you. Hopefully, it's something that you're interested, and I can help you through the process. Obviously, I'm 5 years out of school. As an international student, I had to face some challenges, kind of finding a job, crafting a resume. I kind of had to learn a lot of these skills by myself. So I'm ready to take all that information and really put it out there for all of you that are listening to the podcast. And if you want to dive deeper, get into these coaching sessions and just talk through any problems you have, anything you want to talk about, and help. And hopefully, I can help you, guide you through those challenges and help you in your career. So again, the three main goals for this year are really growing the Engineering Future community. I'm going to be focusing a lot more on my email list, the newsletter, some courses through the email list. I think those are very exciting and interesting. I've purchased a few of them in the past few months, and it's just really interesting to see how they're laid out. And I think the information gets distributed a lot more clear and concise than a video podcast where you need to spend some time just kind of watching through the video and everything. I think with the newsletter and with the course in an email form, you get to expand a lot more, have more links, more resources. And I think that's an interesting format that I'm going to be trying. Hopefully, you get a lot of value from it. And lastly, obviously, the coaching that I'm going to be doing, some of these services I'm going to be putting out there, and hopefully that will help you and help me connect with you a lot closer and help you kind of walk through any challenge that you may have. So something that I've been trying to do recently is just kind of cut down on the things that I'm doing. And this year, my three kind of main focus are the podcast. Obviously, this is kind of the main thing that I've been doing with this kind of side. I still consider like the newsletter and kind of the coaching and the courses that I'm doing just kind of a side of the podcast that just kind of helps me connect with you a lot closer and having a, a a great opportunity just to have that one-on-one connection, which is I think is super important. I want to prioritize family, just spending more time with family, limiting the amount of things that I'm doing kind of during the day. Obviously, my kids are growing super fast, so I want to make sure I am spending a lot of time with them, just enjoying the outdoors, especially over these summer months. Doing some traveling, just spending a lot more time with family. I think it's something that is super important and something that it's is a big priority for me. And lastly, just help lead a lot of the engineering organizations I'm part of. And again, that number has shrunk in the past couple of years as I try to consolidate the things that I'm doing. But I'm currently the president for the ASC Denver Younger Members Group. I'm a part of like the technical team for EWB here in Boulder as well. And then I'm becoming a member of a couple more committees at the SEI national level, which is super interesting and super exciting topics such as like business practices and just leadership in general. So kind of help me understand where I fit within those roles and how can I help these organizations, these committees kind of reach the maximum potential and achieve all the things that we're planning on doing. So again, that number has been slowly kind of shrinking with time. And now I'm just kind of focusing on the things that I really enjoy and are really interesting to me and kind of helping me grow in my career. And like right now, I'm just leaving work off. This is kind of a separate, different topic. I take it and approach it a little differently as it's kind of part of a bigger team. But let me know on Twitter or social media if you want me to just talk about how I plan, how I set my goals for work, and how I just consider work and just kind of look for opportunities to grow within the company. So I'm gonna leave it at that for this week. Obviously, there are a lot more content coming up. I already recorded a couple interviews. I'm excited for the interviews that are coming in the next couple of weeks. Talking about with my wife again about our board meeting, which we did in the last week of the year, and it was just a time where we really reflected and a lot of these things that I've been talking about today, the review process, prioritizing the things that really matter to me kind of came out of that meeting. So I'm super excited to bring you that episode maybe in a couple of weeks. And overall, just understand that the things that I'm doing are because that's the time and effort that I want to put into them. You, on the other hand, have a different amount of time. You may have more time, may have less time. So try to find out what really works for you and what's important in your life. You may don't care about volunteering, but you want to start a side business that you want to put a lot more time into it. That's great. You may just want to focus on work, and that's also great. So make sure you are understanding what your priorities are, because before you know it, other people are going to start choosing for you, or when people start asking you, requesting your time, and slowly you're going to maybe start giving it away without you knowing. And it's going to be harder to start shrinking that time slowly as you find out what you really want to be doing. And again, prioritize the three things that are most important for you in your life. Again, for me, where the podcast, as a whole, the podcast has been an amazing platform to engage with more people, find new connections, talk to interesting people, and I want to keep doing it. I've slowly kind of, as I either outsource some of the things with the podcast, or as I find better systems that help me find more time that I can put into the podcast, I started adding, let's say, the newsletter, now these coaching services, because behind the scenes, I have a set amount of time that I put to the podcast. That number, let's say, is about 5 to 7 hours a week, maybe depending on the week, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. But I try to do everything during the week and take the weekends completely off for the most part. There's the occasional recording session or article that I'm writing or something, but in general, it's about 7 hours a week. So as I free up some of that time, I'm available to do other things. So that's kind of how I think about it. I have a set amount of time. I'm just going to work as hard as I can for that amount of time each week. And what comes out of the other end, it's the output that you see on the side. You see the podcast, you see the newsletter, you see these coaching services now. That's all being helped. That's all happened because I created these systems that help me be more efficient. I've been able to outsource some of the things that just are really time consuming, and I'm being grateful to just be able to output a lot more content. Obviously, family was my second, or I guess family should be the first priority in my life, the podcast. And then lastly, the engineering organization I'm part of. Again, I have a set number of hours that I set for myself each week or each month where I am fully investing in the organizations, doing any tasks that I need to be doing, sending emails, writing any reports, and that stays consistent. So I find as I find the more opportunities to become more efficient, to really practice at that time and make the most out of it, that's when I started incorporating other things, and has really been a mindset that has helped me, one, not burn out because I'm spending more hours than I need to doing these things, as well as just having the opportunity to take a closer look at all of these things and really make sure that the systems that are in place for that are the most efficient ones as possible. Because at the end of the day, I want to make the podcast, time with family, and engineering organizations uh, an enjoyable experience, right? Than something that I'm so burned out that I'm not going to be doing the podcast or any of these things in the future. So that's how I think about it. Just finding an amount of time, creating the systems around it, putting the effort that I need to make that happen, and then seeing what comes on the end. Um, Hopefully, with time, that gets improved and polished with all the effort that I'm putting. So I really challenge you to look at the your top three priorities, write them down, send them to me on social media via email if you subscribe to the newsletter. If you're not, make sure you subscribe. I would love to hear from you, and hopefully this year we can make it a special year, a year that we're challenging ourselves, we're growing together, and hopefully at the end of the year we're satisfied with everything accomplished. I really hope you have a fantastic day. I'm really excited for everything that's happening with the podcast, with Engineering Future, with work, with life, with engineering organization, with everything that I'm doing. I'm very excited to really bring all of that together, and hopefully we can connect closer via email. I'm trying to set up a few kind of live podcast episodes, type webinars in the close future. So hopefully we can get some live questions, some more connection. And I'm very excited for everything that is happening in 2022. Thank you, Jack Windows, for the music. I'll talk to you in the next one. But for now, let's continue engineering our future.